Recording to the cloud. Okay. And so if you guys need a copy of that, email me or something after the meeting, and we can set that up, send you a copy of the recording. Speakers, just let me know when you're done, and if you'd like to entertain questions, I'll be happy to field them and intro the next speakers. Without further ado, I'm honored to intro our first speaker for any comments he might have to kind of kick us off here. The Director of Planning. I've read his bio a couple times. I'll read a brief bio for Mikhail Pelfrey. He joined in 2006 the Department of Rural and Municipal Aid after 5 years in the private sector. In 2011, he joined the Division of Planning and Strategic Corridor team, and now he's worked his way up to be the Director of Planning in 2020. Mikhail's a proud graduate of UK. He received his BS in Civil Engineering, and he lives in Lexington with his wife, Sagan, boys, Lyndon, and Charleston. So please welcome Mr. Mikhail Pelfrey. Let me unmute you here, Mikhail.
Thank you.
Okay.
That work? Everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Appreciate the introduction. Sorry, I know the last two virtual SCP meetings we've had Secretary Gray and State Highway Engineer James Ballinger kind of kicking us off. So quite the fall from grace today that you get to hear from me starting things off. But we'll try to get some of those more executive leadership here. I don't want to invite them every time. I know they got committed schedules too, but we'll try to hear from them sporadically throughout these SCP meetings throughout the year. Jason and I are going to kind of tag team this shift presentation. He's going to be doing obviously a lot of the heavy lifting, but I wanted to. Most of you all probably know that we started this process back in kind of late September. The first thing that we did was we got a committee, the Shift Steering Committee. That's comprised of 16 of us throughout the cabinet, and also the ads and the MPOs and FHWA. So I wanted to give a special mention or special thanks to everybody on that committee at this time. We've been holding twice. We've been meeting twice a month for at least a couple hours, kind of going over pieces of Shift. So I kind of wanted to acknowledge everybody on that committee for giving them their time and their input into this process. Eileen Vaughn from FHWA, she was obviously she headed up Shift the first couple of cycles. Her institutional knowledge has been a big help to the group. John Moore at the State Highway Engineer's Office, also very involved with Shift the last two cycles. So, but we couldn't be where we're at without the two of them for sure. We've also got an ad representative and an MPO representative from the Bluegrass ad, Natalie Escobar. She's been a big help for us. I know any ads have to have questions. I know she's been receiving them and she's giving feedback to us. Carissa Lemon is representing the MPOs out of Bowling Green. Same thing with any MPOs. If you have any questions, you can. If you don't feel free, send them to me or Jason. Carissa is your point person. And then we've got three kind of district staff throughout the state. We wanted to pick a group that was diverse statewide, but we wanted to pick kind of people who had been through the process before, and also some newer faces to let us know what we needed to make more clear for anybody going through this for the first time. Those are Nick Hall, District 2. He's hopped on in the last month or so, replacing Charlie Allen, who unfortunately retired at District 4. Dane Blackburn from District 6. And Jason Blackburn kind of started out in District 10, but he is now kind of transitioned to the Assistant Director for our division. And then our contingent from Central Office Planning, Beth Neiman, Stephen DeWitt, who's headed up the crash severity portion, the safety portion of Shift. Thomas Witt, who is leading up the roadway characteristics. Tanya Higdon, who is kind of overseeing the economic development piece. You're seeing Jacob Huber, who is kind of responsible for any new criteria that we want to try to implement into the formulas. Jason, as I mentioned, he is responsible for asset management. Matt Lawson is overseeing benefit cost. Scott Thompson is overseeing congestion. I'm overseeing freight, and our last, hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but Daniel Holker, who has been, he's the main guy behind the scenes. He helped us to recreate all the formulas from the last round of shift, and he's a part of each one of these separate work groups. He is a guru at Microsoft Access, and want to especially thank him for everything that he's done getting us to this point. I guess at this time, I just wanted to give acknowledgement to everybody on that shift steering committee and kind of let everybody know what their contributions have been so far. But I will turn it over to Jason, and he will kind of bring us up to kind of give us a shift 101 and then what we've done and where we're going moving forward.
Okay, and a brief intro for Jason would be he's been working for the Department of Highways for about 20 years, and most of which has been in D10. And in December of 2020, he took on the role of Assistant Director of Planning, oversees the shift process. So welcome, Jason. You want me to put your PowerPoint up here? Let me unmute you here.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
Okay. How's it going today, Jason?
Still
Looking
alive.
sharp.
Then I didn't know if I should do a tie or what I should do, so I kind of just did a button up.
That's what I did.
I do apologize to everybody that's seeing me right now because I purposely didn't put lotion on my head. It makes it a little more shiny, but it looks pretty. Gosh, it looks real bad right now. That's for sure. The light's coming down, and I've got a background. I apologize. It is what it is.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, here. Let's see if I think that you're up and running here.
Yep.
Let me do the from beginning. Okay, they look good. Just tell me when you want to change.
Okay. So basically, like Mikhail said, I'm just kind of a brief overview, and at the main end, I'll explain a little more why and what's going on. But basically, this is for people who haven't been through the shift process yet. Kind of the new folks just want that real high level view. So, SHIFT, of course, stands for the Strategic Highway Investment Formula for Tomorrow. Go ahead. And basically, SHIFT, it's a data-driven process. Not saying that it's different. It incorporates the local input. Other states have done this. It's tries to be as transparent as we can, and it is defensible. Want to highlight that second one there, that that this shift really is meant to be a guide. It's not necessarily saying something is this is the best and what has to be done. Shift does take data, and it kind of provides a guide for us to say, this project based on this data say scores higher. So that's something to just keep in your head at all times. Go ahead, Jacob. For people who don't know, SHIFT, and so the highway plan process, basically as a whole, we only deal with certain projects. Those are what we classify as safety improvements, roadway widening, of course, reconstructions, new interchanges, new routes. Projects that we don't do, and this is more key, are our maintenance projects. You'll see that if you go through a highway plan, you'll see a lot of projects that are bridges, bridge replacements, bridge rehabs, and then things like pavement rehabs, and then resurfacing and whatnot. Those don't go through SHIFT. That's got its own separate section of money, and those kind of things doesn't get scored through SHIFT. Other projects, of course, are the safety. When I say safety, I mean the Highway Safety Improvement Program. That's a federally dedicated pot. Same way as like our TAP program, for those that are familiar with it, the bike ped, the CMAQ, things of that nature. That doesn't go through SHIFT. Next, Jacob. just wanted to throw this up there. Everyone should have got this in December. If you didn't, let me or Jacob know. But this is kind of the schedule. The revision date, of course, is December 18th. That is the current schedule. And so just want to make sure that everybody has it. Let us know if you don't. Next. And then to start getting a little more detail. So SHIP basically consists of kind of these 7 steps. We're currently in the first one, what we're calling a project identification. That's kind of creating those chaffs, things of that nature. Here in just a month and a half, we'll start sponsorship. Then we'll go into scoring. Then after that, the projects will be given what, a statewide priorities. So basically, we'll take those the first round of scores and we'll develop our statewide list. And then after that, it'll come back to the locals, the ads, MPOs, and districts to do project boosting. After that will be the regional project selection. And then finally, the recommended highway plan will be created. I'm going to go ahead, Jacob, to just kind of get in those first 2, because that's kind of where we are right now. So the first one is the project identification. This is creating those chaffs. That's open and can be done until April 1st. A little bit change from last time. We've extended that open date for a decent period this round. So just keep that date in mind. I know I'm seeing a lot more people are scheduling their meetings right now. And forgive me, Dave, that just threw me for a loop because your question just came up. Yes, we will get that scheduled to you. That's wild. But basically, keep the April 1st deadline, because after that, chaffs will be shut off, will be cut off, and unless it's some kind of extreme circumstance, and I mean real extreme, and hopefully I make that decision. And if you know me, I have no problem with saying no. That's actually one of my better vocabulary words. Actually, a real forceful no. That's how we'll move forward. Meetings are happening, and that's great. Next, Jacob, and this is kind of the next true big step, is sponsorship. That'll open up the chaff. The sponsor buttons will open up on March 1st. And they will actually go through the middle of May, which is totally different. If you remember the last 2 cycles, we basically cut these off in March. And just want to highlight that this was extended at the request of the legislators. They are in session right now. So it might be harder to get them to a lot of these meetings. I can't overemphasize that we really want to try to involve them as early and as often as possible. So be mindful of that as you do your meetings. One of the things that I'm liking, I'm hearing more and more, is that there's a lot of 2 meetings that's going on now. The first one is kind of that chaff and creation of new projects. Legislators might not be able to attend it, and then everybody's making sure, it appears, to kind of hold off on the actual sponsorships meetings until they're confident that the legislators have opportunities that they can attend those. So that's really good. Next, SHIP basically consists of the 5 basic components you see here: safety, asset management, the congestion, the cost benefit, the economic growth. Each one of these 5 consist of kind of subparts that have 2 or more parts to it. So that's a good thing. For example, the asset management, that consists of our pavement conditions on our roads and the bridge conditions or structure conditions. Next one, Jacob, and the last one, and perhaps the biggest one. So coming soon, changes, formula changes. We, as Mikhail mentioned, the steering committee has been meeting, and for the last 2 weeks, we've been getting together, and I've been keeping everybody way past their bedtime, it seems like. These meetings are running long because it's a lot of good discussion. but we're in the middle of the kind of the formula changes right now. And we do have a few tweaks. For instance, safety formula will now incorporate things like the severity of crashes. Anyone who might have known before, it was just the kind of the broad number of crashes. But as we move forward, we're seeing that, perhaps it's a better use to start pinpointing and giving a little more weight to the more severe crashes. And I hope everyone can get behind that. That's not the only change. I just don't want to go into all of them right here and right now. Next up, the next two is the committed list and the number of sponsorships. And I know I've been putting people off for a couple months now. The bottom line is I do have the committed list. I did get it last night. I'm going to hold off. The intent is everyone will receive the committed list as well as your number of allotted sponsorships next Wednesday afternoon. The reason for that is I'm going to run everything by the steering committee first, and we have a meeting on Wednesday morning, and going to let them know here's what it is and make sure that the steering committee is in good shape. So that's as soon as that's done, the committed list will come out as well as the sponsorship number. So hopefully that'll relieve everybody and everybody knows how to move forward. Last but not least, a lot of inquiries about the websites. If you go to our actual website, there's no longer, you can't just kind of navigate through and find that. The forward page, the facing page has been kind of taken down. And that's because we're kind of in that transition period. We are going to make some changes. There's going to be some differences, things of that nature. So the hope and intent is that in early February, the website that will be put back up that everyone can go to and click on. And that'll have our schedule. That'll have perhaps the allocation of sponsorships and things of that nature. Then as we move forward, as more info becomes available, we'll try to keep that web page up to date. Hopefully, that's about it. Hopefully that helped somebody. If it at least helped one person, that means it was successful. As always, just email me, give me a call. I get those Teams calls, just not even thinking about it. And all of a sudden my little iPad will start going off and it's a familiar face. And it's like, yeah, I've got time to chat or email. We can set something up, just anything like that. More than happy to answer any questions. Now, last but not least, I talked about the formula changes. And so what I want everybody to know, unfortunately, we don't have them all yet. And so I know it kind of sucks. Everybody, you might not be the best fan of these screen meetings, but the intent now is after next week, we will know kind of what those formula changes are. And we can start doing a few things. So I'll send out an email and I'll do maybe a 30-minute to an hour-long meeting end of January, 2 weeks from now, we'll say 1st of February. And if you want to attend, definitely do it. Might even get Jacob to set it up with the Zoom or whatnot. And I'll just go over, here's the new formula and just kind of, take each section and say, here's what the old one was, here's what we're changing, and here's why we're changing it. So that everyone will know and everyone will be able to, relate that to their communities and whatnot. Hopefully, I think that's probably going to be the best way. More than happy if the ads want to do something on their own, more than happy to meet with them. MPO's the same way, as well as the districts. So with that being said, I guess I'm 2 minutes over. Don't know if we're going to questions or anything like that or when, but I'm finished, Jacob.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Nice job. Congratulations on your new title. And let's see. The shift links for the old, it's not on the live website, I don't believe, but in the agenda, there are links to the old information. I checked those yesterday, see if they work. So you can still find like the old historical type info if you need that for your local official meetings or whatever. Okay, so that's about it for KYTC updates. Anybody else from KYTC can put them in the chat box or something, if you think of more updates during the meeting. But next up on the agenda, we're a couple minutes behind, but we've got a little extra time built into the schedule. So we're going to get an FHWA kind of update. We were trying to get some budget type information, so we'll see what Miss Bernadette DuPont has to say. Bernadette DuPont has been with the FHWA for about 20 years, for 20 years next week. She's the program manager for air quality, CMAC, the ferry boat program, freight, HPMS, TSMO, and of course, she's the senior planner in the office. She's got one daughter that lives in Cincinnati and says the most important thing in her life is her family and friends. She also likes the arts, and her hobbies include painting and wood carving. So that's interesting, Ms. Bernadette. Welcome, and let's see. Let me know if you need me to share your slides. And I'll try to make sure you're unmuted here.
It says right now that I'm already sharing my slides. Can you see them?
Okay, yeah, I can see it, and I can hear you.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you today. We wanted to talk, of course, about the appropriations bill that just came out. It was enacted in December 27th this past year. And if you're interested in all the details, the link is there at the very bottom. Oh, the very top of the screen is hidden away, but we ended up getting $46.4 billion and plus an additional $2 billion in general funds for highway infrastructure programs. And out of that $2 billion, $1.08 billion are for new bridge replacement and rehabilitation program. That means that each state is going to get a minimum of $6 million with a maximum of $60 million. And that's based on the bridge condition performance measures. And the one that they're specifically looking at is the proportion of the percentage of each state's total bridge deck area in poor condition compared to all the qualifying states and their total bridge deck area in poor condition. And for Kentucky, we did not meet our goal. So that's maybe a negative thing, but a good thing is that we're going to be eligible for a little bit more of this money. So that's a good thing. And then of course, the general operating expenses, and that's for our division offices. That was, we had received $475.6 million, which was an increase over last year of $22.1 million. And that means immediately we're going to cancel the hiring slowdown. So Federal Highway Kentucky will be hiring a new planner. And then of course, there's the additional COVID-19 supplement. Oh, shoot, hit the wrong button, sorry. But what that means is we're getting an additional $10 billion for supplemental highway infrastructure programs. Now, yesterday we received the obligation limitation and funding information. We're sorting through that internally, and then we'll have more information to share with you. But for right now, this is all I'm allowed to share. But John Valentine looked at it this morning, and he said that there are some special, unusual funding sources in there. And John, if you wanted to say anything about those things, or do you want to just wait? Well, I'll go ahead on to the next part of John while John's unmuting.
Yeah, go ahead. Some of those things have already been sent to KYTC, and we're expecting some more guidance coming out this week.
Okay, thank you, John. I also want to let you know, and you've probably already heard this, that this new secretary, proposed secretary for transportation will be Pete Buttigieg, and he's the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He was going to be confirmed by the Senate tomorrow, and that's the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation that does that confirmation. He has been a streetscape and public-private partnership advocate. He's written 2 books, The Shortest Way Home and Trust. And I don't know if you saw it, but he was a guest host on the Jimmy Kimmel Live. I stay up late, so I saw it, but he wasn't bad either. And he's also a very good speaker. So Pam Drock at the Evansville MPO sent me this link to his speech, and it was actually pretty interesting if you want a chance to look at it. Jacob's going to send out the presentation, so you'll have all the links. And then also just named yesterday was the U.S. Deputy Secretary And that's Polly Trottenberg, who is the former commissioner of New York City's Department of Transportation. So that's pretty much the update from Federal Highways. And if you have any questions, I can take those questions and give you answers later, probably. In case you're wondering, this is the bridge. This picture is of the bike pedestrian bridge over Man o' War in Lexington, and they're moving right along with that. They've already got the support in the middle of Man o' War. So go ahead. Anyone have questions?
Let's see, I don't see anything in the chat box yet.
Okay, then. Well, I'll stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you, Jacob. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bernadette. I appreciate your efforts there. And the slides, it's good information for me. I know we had a change there on the national level, so it'll be interesting to see what all comes about here. Let's see. So next on the agenda, that covers some shift update, covers some KYTC updates, some federal updates, and now we're going to go to kind of shift gears a little bit back to shift. The Kentucky Transportation Center has been a partner of the cabinet and they've helped us with a lot of interesting studies, fascinating studies. And Dr. May Chin is one of the people that has been a great resource over there. Very knowledgeable, very professional. Dr. May Chin she's an associate professor at the Department of Civil Engineering at UK since 2007 and has been there since 2002. She's worked for the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the National Center for Transportation and Industrial Productivity in New Jersey at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, which is kind of fascinating. She's also been the principal planner for the New Jersey Center of Transportation Information Decision Engineering and has been a lecturer at the Department of Transportation Engineering in Southwest Jiao Tong University in Chengdu, China. Her degrees are Material Science and Technology, and she's got from Jiao Tong University, and she's got her PhD from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Her name's on several different publications, in a variety of journals, and today she's going to be going over something we might consider for a new shift criteria, or to accentuate what we have now. But with that being said, please welcome Dr. May Chin.
Thank you, Jacob. Do you see my speaker view or the full screen?
We see your speaker's view, May.
Okay. This should be fine, right?
Yep, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I can hear you good.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about a recent study that I've been working with KYTC on, which is titled Develop a Highway Criticality Assessment Approach. Now, I wanted to mention that this study was actually inspired by some conversation with John Moore on how to utilize certain capabilities of the graph theory to solve transportation network problems. So when it comes to network criticality, criticality is a pretty broad term. And, you can be looking at criticality from, volumes point of view. You can be looking at it from, functional classifications point of view. But here our focus is mostly on the network connectivity. So, for example, for folks who are familiar with Lexington's network, especially in the downtown, you have mostly, grid network. And let's say if one part of Main Street is closed, your detour is next block or two away. So it's not incredibly difficult to make that detour, in a well-connected network. But on the other hand, if you're, living in a mountainous area where you only have, one major corridor, going through the entire region, and if that corridor somehow breaks down, then it'll, significantly hurt the connectivity of the roads and also significantly affect the accessibility. So here, and again, we're looking at the criticality from the perspective of network connectivity and to see if there is a good way to kind of measure that. Now, we all understand looking at these two graphs, you can see that, for example, the one on the left, you have, looks like a residential subdivision that has a single entry point, and you have commercial or maybe school facilities nearby, but everybody has to, now everybody has to, get on the road, the main road here, right? So what happens if this main road is disrupted? Then the access is cut off for a lot of trips. Whereas if you look at the network on the right, if one part of the road is disrupted, you can see there are other ways to get to your destination. So when we're doing analysis for specific location, it is easy to spot these different patterns. But how do we look at the roadway network for an entire state and at the statewide scale? So that is really a challenge. So we turn to the classic graph theory. You can just represent your roadway network in the graph that you see on the left, for example, with intersections or interchanges designated as nodes. And roadway segment links are considered as links or arcs. So, in these kind of classic graph where you can, you can define your roadway network into, how do we measure the criticality of each element in the network? Well, in this case, we introduce a concept called betweenness centrality. It's or short as BC. So the classic definition, if you're of BC, if you're talking about a specific link, is the number of shortest paths that pass through the link. So let's say in this, case where you see, let's say starting from node 1, talking about shortest path going to all the other nodes, with the numbers along the edge of each link representing, let's say, the travel time. And you can pretty much figure out what's the shortest path going from 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, and so on. So, after we do this for all the nodes in the network, and we can figure out, for example, the link between node 3 and 5 with a travel time of 4, will be on, let's say, 10, for example, shortest paths between all the ODs in this network. So that 10, number 10, is considered by original definition as betweenness centrality for that link. Okay, now the text on the right is just, the formal way of expressing that. So then you would ask, okay, so what if we have a network with a lot of nodes, a lot of links? So for example, the one that you see on the left, the Fayette County network, or the one on the right, it's largely Louisville metro area. So what if we have so many nodes and so many links, and as a result, if you only count number of shortest paths that go through a link, then you might be have a large BC value for roadways in very dense network in urban areas. Whereas the roadway network that you see in the middle, that is from Perry County, you see that roads are, a lot sparser. So in this case, how do we account for the effect of network density? Okay, so that's one consideration. The other consideration, how big of a neighborhood do you want to consider? Okay, now 2 slides ago, I showed you a very simple, 7-node network, but how big of a network do we really want to consider when it comes to looking at the importance, of a particular link? So we started out with looking at the county network. The one in the middle that you see is Fayette County, and then we expanded to include its surrounding counties. The one on the right is Perry County with its surrounding county networks. And we did a lot of experiments, try different threshold for the neighborhood size. And we kind of gravitated toward a 60-minute travel time radius. So the one that you see on the left is, that's where, the star represents where Brent Spence Bridge is. And if we go out from that location in 1 hour, this is the area that you can reach in 1 hour. And of course, all the roads with all the links and nodes that you can reach within 1 hour from Brent Spence Bridge. So we kind of gravitated toward that 1 hour number. So, going back to consider the effect of network density, we came up with a way to normalize the betweenness centrality. Okay, so instead of using number of shortest paths that go through a link, we say, how about using the percentage of shortest path a link belongs to between the ODs within its 60-minute neighborhood. Okay, so this way, the betweenness centrality, is able to look at the relative importance of a link. Okay, within its immediate neighborhood, that neighborhood being 60-minute around it. So, for example, we did a little, analysis using, the roadway network in Kentucky. And here, the star location that you see is Mountain Parkway at mile point 35.8. Our analysis using the node, the network structure only, extracted from HIS, tells us that this location, belongs to about 2% of the shortest paths in its neighborhood. And if you do this for all the roadway segment in the state and you compare them together, all together, and this location is ranked in top 5% statewide. So now this is the analysis done using only the roadway network. We get the data directly from KYTC's Highway Information System network, where we used all roads, which basically includes not only the KYTC's state maintained roads, but also all the locally maintained roads. It is high resolution with lots of details that are really useful. And above all, because it contains all the roads, it allows us to come up with the betweenness centrality measures for each link of the road, and therefore, make it possible to do a comparative ranking among all roads in the state. Okay, now another major data source is Kentucky's statewide travel demand model, where we, initially we were trying to look at the trips between the originating between the tasks, between the traffic analysis zones. We actually did use the zone-based analysis in the subsequent analysis for this road disruption, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we also extracted the out-of-state network from the Kentucky statewide travel demand model because HIS only covers roads in state. So these are two major pieces of information that we use for the analysis. So just want to give you a kind of comprehensive look of what it looks like if we conduct node-to-node analysis using only the statewide HIS all roads network. So here's a map showing the rankings, again, based on normalized BC value of all the roads in the state. So you see the thick red line represents the top 1%, of roads statewide. And you see that it covers most, interstate portions. And also some of the very important backbone roads in the Eastern Kentucky. And now I should mention that this is entirely based upon the existing roadway structure, the connectivity scenario. And of course, we have the data in ArcGIS format. If you guys would like to see that, we can send those files over. So this is, and again, node-to-node level analysis in 60-minute neighborhood. Now, another aspect of analysis that we did was regarding the impact of road closure. So as we have already been reminded by the Brent Spence Bridge closure, is that what if a link is broken? For example, if you're seeing here, is a location, is a New Circle Road interchange with US 60 Versailles Road in Lexington. And what if a section of the road is broken, and that basically makes the connectivity, lost the connectivity. So because of the detailed nature of the network, we cannot do the road closure analysis at the link level, or in the node-to-node setting. So what we end up doing is to move to a zone-based analysis. This is where we use the traffic analysis zones from KYTC statewide model, and we created centroid connectors basically from the center of each zone to connect to all the nodes, I should say, in the roadway network inside that zone. So for detour analysis, we looked at 3 different scenarios, where scenario 1, all roads, including local roads, they can serve as detour. And scenario 2 is we only consider roads that are collectors or above as detour. And then scenario 3, we have to, reroute traffic on equivalent roads, meaning roads belong to the same or higher functional classes. So how do we exactly measure the impact of road closure? Looking at the network, looking at the data available to us, we look at 2 aspects. One is detour, okay? Do we have detour, available within our immediate neighborhood that basically is a surrogate to say, if your detour is providing, adequate or reasonably accommodating the disrupted trips. The other is the change in travel time. Now, I must stress that the travel time here we're looking at is the shortest travel time, or the free flow travel time, because our analysis does not consider the equilibrium assignment nor the capacity constraints. So these are the 2 items that we track. So how exactly do we track it? So for example, for the highlighted section, we look at when that section is in place as usual, how many trips going from one origin to a destination, how many trips that will go through that link, will use that link. After its disruption, and how many of these trips cannot be rerouted without going out of neighborhood. So basically, you have to go all the way out of the analysis area, the 60-minute neighborhood, to reach your destination. So we consider that as unreasonable. So in addition to the trips that cannot be rerouted without going out, and we also looked at how much additional travel time, if it is possible to reroute within the neighborhood, then how much additional travel time would that incur? So these are the kind of metrics that we track before and after. I just wanted to quickly show you some of the results. Now, the first one is Kentucky 15 at mile marker 20. You know, this one, we did its neighborhood definition. That's the entire area that you see. That's the neighborhood, and with all the roadways in the neighborhood. In scenario 1, which means if this road is disrupted, you can use any other roads, including local roads, to do the detour. And, you know, according to the analysis, this is the zone-based analysis, this link carries a little over 19,000 OD trips out of 50,000 OD trips, and that is about 38% of the trips going in the region. And, you know, all the trips are reroutable after the closure. You know, again, the assumption is that you can use any local roads to reroute. And, you know, the shortest travel time is going to be at least 7 minutes longer. Okay, so if the rerouting strategy is to only use equivalent route, which is our scenario 3, so this location, this segment is functional class 3. So we have to only use functional class 3 or above roads. So in this case, you know, it carries about 49% of the trips using functional class 3 roads. Now, if you cut this location off, if you know, let's say close this section, then there is no detour available within the neighborhood. You have to go out if you have to stick to functional class 3 or above roads. Okay, so that is the example for this location. Now, another location I wanted to show you is the Mountain Parkway at mile marker 35.8. And for this one, you know, if you do allow detour, you know, to go on any local roads or any roads, you know, you are pretty much looking at adding at least 5.3 minutes to, you know, each of the trips on average. And if you only, you know, if you follow the scenario 3 routing strategy, you know, using equivalent roads, then there is no other alternative. There is no other detour in the region that can carry the trips that used to be traveling on this segment. So some other examples. Here's an example for Brent Spence Bridge, and it shows the star is where it's located at, and it shows the whole neighborhood that we're considering. So if, let's say, you can reroute traffic to any other roads, including local roads, you know, you can find plenty of detours. But if you know, require that traffic to stay on interstate, in this case, it's functional class 1, then, you know, each rerouted trip will be at least, you know, 12.6 minutes longer. Okay, because you have to, you know, use the interstate roads. So that is Brent Spence Bridge and Sherman Minton in Louisville. Now for this one, you know, under scenario 1, okay, it is important. It carries, you know, 6.6% of all the ODs. And, you know, if you close that one and allow use any other roads, you know, it'll add at least, you know, 2.7 minutes to each trip that used to travel through here. If you look at scenario 3 case where you have to stick to interstate highways, then each, you know, then I should say now 60% of the trips become, you know, not possible, you know, because without going out of, you know, the this area. Now 40%, among 40% of those that are reroutable, you know, you will add at least 5.5 minutes to the trips. So this is the kind of analysis we can do, but I do want to mention a couple things. Now, first of all, since we're doing shortest path assignment based upon travel time, now we know the length from HIS data, and we need speed. Now, in this case, we're not using speed limit. Instead, we're using a tiered speed based on functional classification, and the speed state constant. That is where we're not looking at or not accounting for the effect of congestion. And of course, it is very simplified routing. It just involves repeatedly perform Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm. And there is no consideration on capacity constraints. And then there is, again, no consideration of the effect of congestion. Now, it follows, what we call the egalitarian rule. Basically, you consider only the nodes and links, zone centroid, without considering how many actual, let's say how many traffic volumes do you expect going from one origin to one destination. Okay, so there's no consideration of volumes. So in this way, you treat every section of a road in the same, I guess, level. So you're not using volume to weight any of these. So these are, what I wanted to mention. Now, what we're currently doing is, trying to complete the statewide analysis using the zone-based, between the centrality. And whether it is node-based or zone-based, the normalized between the centrality can offer you a measure that tells us about the relative importance of a link in its neighborhood. And we're using only the existing roadway network structure. So whether it's grid pattern or other patterns, we can just look at the connectivity metrics for each link. And using the HIS network that allows us to do this for all the links in the network, whether it's state maintained or all local roads. And as a result, it allows statewide comparison. Okay. And the detour analysis that I mentioned, 2 minutes ago, it does, require some intensive computing. So doing this for every single link statewide would be really challenging. But this is easily done for, selected locations. So the computation for all the scenarios, ranges from a couple hours to, more than a day. So it varies significantly based upon, how many zones or how many links are you looking at. And of course, we're, working to, find a better way to do this calculation, in a more efficient manner. Now, I want to mention though, there are some possible or potential expansions to these metrics. The first one being, if you want to apply the utilitarian rules, where you do consider, the impact, to more than just one trip, to look at incorporate the OD volumes into consideration, and that is, a possibility as well. And you can also expand to include socio-demographic and land use data, looking at the trips carried by these roads are whether it's disadvantaged region economically, or job situation or social vulnerability characteristics, and are we providing access to critical infrastructures like hospital or schools and so on. And you can also incorporate, let's say, the roadway vulnerability characteristics, such as if a section of road is really used by a lot of trips, but at the same time, it also is vulnerable to, let's say, flooding and all that. So we probably should put that section into a higher priority when it comes to, a lot of mitigation effort. So these are just possible ways to, further use the metrics that has been developed. So I will stop here and take questions if we still have time.
I don't see any in the chat box yet. It's fascinating information, Dr. Chen. My brain is going to take a little bit of a rest here for a minute. That's a lot of info. And let's see, the criticality study doesn't take into congestion, so it's kind of an independent measure of congestion. Is that right?
It is the best case scenario. So we're looking at shortest path, going from one location to another. Let's say your daily commute, you know which route is the shortest, right? Even though it's not guaranteed, it always is every day, but it's a general idea. So we're just using that as a way to, sort of, I guess, quantify, how many trips going from one origin to destination is going to consider this section as their shortest, as part of their shortest path. And therefore that gives an idea about, the volume and so on. I mean, actually this whole thing started with, an effort trying to, correlate the AADT on a section with, how important each road is, each link is measured by between its centrality.
Jake, if I may, May and I, we were working on this, and we feel it will be a very important indicator of relative importance. That it is a good indicator of relative importance, and it has application to pavement prioritization, to bridge prioritization, to project prioritization, as we're looking at a particular segment and its relative importance on the network. This is something that came out of conversations that Jason and I have had over a number of years. On there's particular facilities within the network that there's not a lot of redundancy with those facilities. So this is kind of an early effort to try and tease out those routes and figure out where they may need some built-in redundancy. So this is definitely a work in progress, but I'm very excited about it. Thank you, May.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Thank you, John.
If anybody has ideas how to incorporate that in Shift, put them in the chat box or email me. We'll see if we can incorporate it this round, and at least we'll get a better understanding of what it means in the big picture of the prioritization process. So thanks again, Dr. Chen. Good punctuality is 10:01. Let's see. Next up, Next up is Miss Elizabeth Fark with KIPTA, Kentucky Indiana Planning Development Agency, and we know she's got a good boss over there at KIPTA. She's working with Randall too with the ads, and Amanda Spencer over there, and Jarrett Haley. Elizabeth Fark is a transportation planner and began working at the Kentuckiana Regional Planning and Development Agency in February of 2018. Her planning responsibilities include freight transit and most recently leading the effort on KIPTA's active transportation plan and strategies for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. She's got a Bachelor of Arts in History from Center College in Danville and a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Louisville. So she's going to be talking today about something called a coordinated plan, which I thought was pretty interesting. It ties kind of like I said, big picture thinking into what we're doing as planners. So without further ado, Miss Elizabeth Fark.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Good. Okay, so I'm going to be talking today about our Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan that was just updated in November, was when it was approved. So I want to go over a little bit like background. What is a coordinated plan? So it is required to receive FHWA or FTA, excuse me, Section 5310 enhanced mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. So these are for funding projects in service to get people to medical appointments. Paratransit service is typically what it's used for in our region. TARC is the designated recipient for the urban area, and then KYTC is the designated recipient for the AD counties. So this plan does cover all 9 KIPTA counties, including the 2 in Indiana that are the NPO counties. The previous update was in 2016, and so this one I kind of view as a little bit of an overhaul. We update it in concert with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan cycle, so about every 4 years. So that's why our MTP was approved in February of last year. So had to get started on this right away. The aim of the plan is to provide that direction for what projects should be funded. You know, what are the priorities in our region? What should we be hitting first with that limited funding that's available? And then also, we want to help facilitate the coordination between the human service transportation providers, TARC, other government agencies, and the public. We want everybody to be working together to, again, utilize those limited resources. And finally, our goal always with our plans is to have that resource available for providers, for the public, for local governments who are planning. We want them to be able to open it, easily see data and information, what we've heard from the public, and hopefully utilize that in their planning efforts as well. So a little bit about our schedule. It was completed in about 7 months, began again right as we were wrapping up the MTP last spring. So we researched and updated the contact information, the service information for that list of providers. We know that's a huge resource for even our own agency in social services. So we always try to make sure that is as up to date and informative as possible. We also had what I consider a large public outreach effort online. Given the pandemic, we were not able to have in-person meetings or any public meetings, but we did have 2 online surveys, one for the public and one for transportation providers that we put out on social media and our email list, use our KIPTA committees to help get the word out. So I think that given the circumstances, we had pretty good public input back in the spring and summer as well. And then in August, we had our KIPTA committee. So that's our Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee, and then our Transportation Policy Committee for the MPO, as well as the Regional Transportation Council for the AD, provided their input on the strategies and the goals that we had outlined for the plan, gave us their feedback on that. And then late fall, we went out for a public comment after our committees had approved a draft plan to take to the public. And we heard some good thoughts about the plan. I think the only real comment that we had was, yes, continue to look at these services and continue to provide kind of the infrastructure to make these services work well. So that was good to hear. And then in November was that final approval. So I wanted to kind of step through the plan and process a little bit with you all. And first, we addressed the existing conditions. So we looked at the available transportation services in our region. So what human service providers there are.
Uh-oh, I think I lost audio. Elizabeth, hold on just a minute. Let's see if I can unmute you maybe.
Good.
Okay, let's see. Try again here. There's just only like a couple seconds, maybe you lost audio. Okay, now try. Try again, Elizabeth, see if I can hear you.
She's reconnecting her audio, so she can't hear you for a second.
Okay.
That was kind of mean to cut her off like that.
It wasn't my fault. We'll see if she gets back on here. If worst case, I guess she can call in by
Can you hear
phone
me
or
now?
something. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry about that. We lost your audio somehow.
No,
is
it's
this-
okay. It's where I live.
just like a minute. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I think it was only
Yeah.
about maybe 20 seconds or something.
Oh, good.
problem.
Okay. It's always the work from home struggle. Let me reshare my screen. Let's see. Okay, so I was talking about
Okay.
existing conditions and let's see. So I was talking about providers in our area. And kind of getting that list, looking at what's available. Make sure. Okay. And again, this is a big resource. I mean, not only for the planning side of knowing what's available, but also for those who use the plan to be able to say, hey, I want to coordinate with people in our area. Who's out there? What service are they providing? So we also in this area or in this section of the plan looked at activity centers. So on the MPO side, we have these high density land use cluster analysis that we use a lot in our plans. And we've used it in the past with coordinated planning. It was updated with our MTP effort. So we were like, yes, let's use it again. You can kind of see on the screen that like the little pink dots that are underneath are part of it. Those are the shopping high density clusters in our area. And we expanded to also do that analysis for those ad counties as well. You can see a little pink dot in Shelby County where the outlet mall is. So a series of these maps for education, employment, medical in these community access areas are in the plan to help identify where are major destinations, common destinations that people might want to be traveling to. Again, to help providers kind of maybe align their service more with some of the, especially I would say in the more suburban, rural areas, like, okay, where does our service need to hit in these areas? In the urban core, it's not so much of an issue. But I would say, you know, in the rural areas, how do we get people where they need to go out there? Okay, we also have a demographic profile. So we looked at population concentrations of older adults and individuals with disabilities in the region. And we also looked at transit accessibility. So you'll see on this map, we're showing the percent population of individuals with disabilities. And we have that transit catchment area of half a mile from the TARC routes. Now this was right before, or this was after their recent service cuts, unfortunately. So that is reflected in here. And then we also have the Oldham public bus over in LaGrange. So you can see that little area. And this, again, helps give an idea where is service needed, where is regular transit service not accessible. You'll see, you know, Trumbull County has a higher population of individuals with disabilities, and it's far away from potentially medical services that they might need in Jefferson County, for example. So that could be an area of need that could be identified. All right, so again, our public outreach effort, I always think that engaging the public and the actual providers is so crucial to our plans. And we wanted to know what makes transportation services or transit easier to use for the public. What would it take to get you to utilize public transportation maybe instead of these more expensive, a little bit harder to access sometimes, private transportation services? How frequently do you use it? What would make it even better? And then on the provider side, what kind of challenges are you all facing in providing the service? What potential solutions have you all talked about internally that you could share with us, and maybe we can get some of that coordinated effort going to planning for resources. And then we took all of this, so existing conditions, demographics, and the survey results, put them all into identifying the needs. And we wanted to keep it brief and clean. So we came up with 4 areas: in performance, access, safety, and coordination. So when we talk about performance, we're looking at the reliability of service. That is a need in our area. I give it to these transportation providers. It's hard to make sure people can get where they're going when they ask for it, to coordinate drivers, and if buses break down, if vehicles break down. So it's a tough job. So what could be done to increase that reliability? Because at the end of the day, transportation needs to be very safe, convenient for people to use to get where they need to go. We're also looking at access. So what types of service, the frequency of service, where are these transportation services available? There are areas that we heard that people can't travel to. They always have to call a friend, especially again in the outer suburban ring or the rural area. So we know that is a need in our area. We also have safety. We heard from both providers and the public that accommodating those specialized medical needs was sometimes difficult, and providers were always trying to find a way to safely get people with some specialized needs to their destinations. So we saw that as a need. And then we also heard from the public that bike and pedestrian infrastructure, even pertaining to older adults and individuals with disabilities, was a huge need. We heard from a lot of people that they just didn't feel safe next to busy roads, or that the crosswalks or maybe their wheelchair could not get over poor condition sidewalks. So we heard that as a huge need. And then always coordination between agencies, the limited resources. How do we get together and be innovative in how we utilize those resources? So it's not just everyone's kind of on their own, doing their own thing. There's a lot of research going into mobility as a service platforms. That we had a couple of providers mention that they would like to see something like that for our region. So that would definitely be a need to fund in the future. And finally, all those needs translated directly into the goals and objectives. So again, those 4 areas: performance, access, safety, and coordination. We're wanting to enhance the reliability and efficiency of service delivery, access to improve the access of transportation services for the targeted populations, safety to improve safety of transportation services and infrastructure, and coordination to improve the coordination among transportation providers, government agencies, and local advocates. All right, so this plan is available on our website. If you navigate to the coordinated plan under our major functions category, TARG will be using this to help their next round of 5310 funding recipients, help identify them. And we're also hoping to get that regional conversation going our regional mobility council that was hosted by TARC is unfortunately not meeting right now. So we're hoping that that forum to get people together does come back and we are able to address some of those innovative thoughts that came in through the public survey and maybe get something that works a little bit better for the transportation providers in our region. My email is on there if you all have any questions, and then you can always follow our updates at kipta.org/transportation.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Elizabeth. Let's see these. I was going to mention this too. We've got, I'll try to put all these presentations out there, make them available if people would like to see them. I'll probably send out maybe a link to a blind web page or something like that so that people can see the different presentations as long as you're okay with that. But yeah, thanks. It's a lot of information to take in and kind of process. I know we see these for like the urban type areas, but I guess do the rural areas make these, I guess, across the state? Do we see many of these? I know yours includes kind of the rural area, but places without MPOs, I wonder if we're doing coordinated plans in some of these other regions. I don't know if that's something you would know or not. John might know that. Or Eunice. I know we do some of that type of, we look at those criteria around the state, but that might be a direction that people start going a little bit more, is coming up with an actual plan, like an actual document, and showing these different areas, you know, tracking things. So yeah, thanks. I've got all this information. I've got all this information, like I say, if people would like to review it. Let's see in the chat box if anybody's got any questions before we let you go here. Everybody says thanks. We got a break. We've got a break it scheduled at 10:30. Let's see, it's about 10:20 now, so it's good. We're ahead of schedule. Bernadette mentioned that there's a presidential oath of office, I think, at 11:45. It just depends on how the speakers work out today. If we can take a break now, and all the speakers are available, you know, afternoon, we'll see how that goes. Jason, are you on here? Jason Sawala's got a presentation after the break. I'll ask him if he's not on here. But we may go ahead and take a break now, and we'll just plan on coming back. What do I got? 10:45. Let's just plan on coming back. We'll take an extended break, give our brains a rest for a little while, and take a little, do some exercise or whatever you want to do to stand up and walk around. And if you've got any questions, I'll leave the chat box open. I'll kind of check it periodically here for the next probably 10-15 minutes, and then take a break myself. But thanks everybody for your attendance, and I'm glad that we've got everybody was able to be here today. And I'll see you back here at 10:45. That's a good idea, John. I'll pause the recording.
Hey, Jacob, as soon as you allow me to, I can go ahead and share my screen. That way we can get the presentation loaded.
Yeah, go ahead. It's a little cold outside. I got about 10-minute walk in.
Jacob, if you don't mind, go ahead and unshare your screen, and that I think will allow me to share mine.
Yeah, good point. I just stopped. Let me make sure you're unmuted too, or your video is unmuted.
Hey Jacob, is there any reason why I'm sorry, this is Stacy.
Stacy,
Would be able to share my screen whenever it comes turn.
yeah, you should be able to.
Okay.
And you can email me any slides you got if you want backup or whatever. But I'd say try it, and if you got problems, just email it to me or something.
Okay, and it's probably a little too large to email, but I'll transfer it to you then.
I got a 7 megabyte, I think. I think I've gotten up to maybe 12. Or is yours like 20 or something? 20, 30? You got a lot of pictures probably.
Yeah, a little bit more than that, but
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay. Let's see. What time is it? It's 10:44. So give everybody one more minute. Let me find participants. Looks like most everybody's getting back. It was kind of nice. I extended break for a little bit. We were scheduled for about 15 minutes, and then we had about an extra 10. So that worked out pretty good for me. I needed, it helped me go for a little brisk walk and get my blood circulating again. Do some stretches is usually what I try to do during the breaks. All right, let's see. It's 10:45. So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that break. And I'll send out a survey at the end, kind of like I did the last couple, where if you got comments or suggestions, like if we need longer breaks or shorter breaks, if you like the Zoom platform, topics, that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed the teamwork, everybody collaborating and sharing their time with us. So with that mentioned, we'll go ahead and let Jason Sawala take the floor. Jason started with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet in 2000 on the KYTC Civil Engineering Scholarship. And they started full-time in 2005. He spent 5 years in Lexington, D7, and moved to central office in 2011. And he's been assisting the administration of the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And then he joined the State Highway Engineer's Office in 2014 as KYTC's Innovation Engineer, and providing leadership and oversight to the Cabinet's research, innovation, and performance management programs. Jason currently serves as Assistant State Highway Engineer at KYTC, where he leads the Cabinet's innovation program, and he works with partners across the 4 E's of highway safety: education, emergency, medical services, enforcement, and engineering, to prevent serious injuries and deaths on the public roadways of the Commonwealth. Jason lives in Winchester with his wife, Patty, and their 3 children, Nick, Jake, and Tori. So with that, Jason, the floor is yours to talk about some highway safety, strategic highway safety plan.
I appreciate that, Jacob. And just want to confirm, can you guys see my slide here?
Yeah, I can see and hear you.
All right, very good. So good morning, everyone. And I have to say that I offered Jacob the opportunity to freelance my introduction. I actually had the opportunity to work with Jacob in our ALA program, and we built a relationship there doing that together. And so that was a lot of fun, but he didn't take me up on it. So I will say, though, that he talked, if you came back a little bit before the break ended, he talked about getting some stretches in and doing some of that and going for a walk during the break. And as a part of our ALA experience, I actually went and did a Tai Chi class with Jacob, and it's really interesting, to think about how much of that we've lost. I was talking to somebody yesterday about, when you go and speak somewhere in person, you've got to worry about logistical items like making sure you can get to the room on time, making sure you can get to the venue, making sure that your technology works. And in this environment, you have to make sure that you understand which of the million platforms we're using. Jacob mentioned using Zoom this time instead of BlueJeans, and making sure that you're able to properly get your message across. And so, you know, it's always really interesting to come and speak to this group, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do so today. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about our strategic highway safety plan. I've talked to some folks in this group about that on occasion before, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the plan itself. We're going to talk about where we are. We're going to talk about where we intend to go, what our opportunities are to get there, and most of all, I want to talk to you about something that we're calling the 3 I's of highway safety. We want to help get you informed, involved, and intentional about safety. And so we're gonna cover all of those topics today here, at least very briefly. And so first things first, and I'll challenge Jacob as the person who runs these meetings to modify his housekeeping a little bit. Here in the digital world, you know, you gotta be cognizant of the fact that a lot of folks do like to multitask. And you know, realistically, if we're speaking in a live venue, you don't have to tell people not to drive while they're participating in a meeting. But unfortunately, in the virtual environment, you do. And so since this is a highway safety presentation, I'm going to talk about highway safety things. I'll just remind you that don't need to be participating while you're driving. Jacob said that these are all being recorded, and so you can pick them up later when you've safely reached your destination. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So I would just challenge you that if you do these types of things on a regular basis, whether you're a participant or whether you're running one of these meetings, that you always remind folks that if you're driving, the primary goal and your primary responsibility is to make sure that you're doing so in a way that promotes you getting there safely and all of those around you being safe as well. So don't drive distracted. Buckle up, phone down, Kentucky. So let's talk a little bit about where we are and where we're going, okay? And so from a highway safety standpoint, this graph that's included in our strategic highway safety plan kind of explains the lay of the land right now, where we are. So fatality rate, if you will, is a statistical measure that talks about how many fatalities you have per vehicle miles driven, or VMT, okay? Everybody in this group is pretty familiar with that. And you'll see that from 2013 to 2017, of all of the states that surround us and the United States average as a whole, Kentucky, unfortunately, is leading in this measure, and that's not where we want to be. And so when we think about that, what does that mean? That means that we really do have an opportunity to really make a difference when we talk to our local communities, when we talk to groups like this, and also just honestly as we drive. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's part of that intentional part that I mentioned a little bit earlier. But we have an opportunity as a driver, first and foremost, to affect these things. And so, you know, let's talk about that a little bit in further detail. Okay, so from 2009 to 2018, you know, we had 7,425 deaths on the system related to transportation crashes. Okay, so doesn't that's a 10-year period. Doesn't take a math whiz to figure out that that's between 740 and 750 deaths every year on average for that period. Okay, now let's zoom out a little bit and think about what that means from a community standpoint. You know, that would be like a moderately sized community within our Commonwealth just disappearing off the face of the map over a 10-year period. Okay, and when we talk about highway safety, you know, you might hear somebody talk about, you know, what happens out there on the highway is an accident or something like that. You know, we're trying to work on preventable crashes here and preventable serious outcomes. And so I just, you know, we talk a lot about numbers when we talk about highway safety, because that's ultimately, you know, our number is 0, right? We want to get to where 0 people are affected with these serious outcomes, 0 deaths, 0 serious injuries from transportation related to crashes, because we want everybody to get where they're going safely, every trip, every time. But, you know, we do tend to talk about these things related to numbers quite a bit. And so I always like to remind people that when we talk about safety, and this isn't unique to highway safety. You know, it applies for employee safety or any other type of safety that we might talk about as well. Safety isn't about numbers. Safety is about people. And so as we talk about how we affect safety, as we talk about what the opportunities are for either the Office of Highway Safety to help improve safety throughout the Commonwealth, or if we talk about a particular local area and how to do that, it's really important that we talk about it because we care about these people. And that's the reason why we do what we do. And so let's talk a little bit about some more recent history now. Preliminary data from last year shows that 770 lives were lost in 2020 from transportation crashes. Okay, and so that's an increase from 2019 when we experienced 732 lost lives. Now, if we were doing a live show here where we were all in the same room together, I'd be asking for show of hands here. But you know, everybody in here has probably heard at one point or another that travel was down last year. We had the lowest amount of VMT last year that we had in recent memory due to the effects of the pandemic. And so if we had less travel, wouldn't we expect that to mean less severe crashes? And in general, yes, we would expect that. But I'll tell you that's just not what happened, and that's not unique to Kentucky. There's been a lot of information come out from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, the Governor's Highway Safety Association, GHSA, and a lot of that information has talked about risky driving behaviors. And so it's really important that we think about what the role of behaviors, not only quote the other driver. I mean, if you think about it, when you talk about driving behaviors, everybody is fully able to recognize opportunities for others to improve their driving, and maybe we struggle a little bit when we talk about ourselves. Excuse me there. But when you think about it, I think that everybody that's listening, if you're driving or riding as a passenger, you probably have an opportunity to improve behavior, right? You know, and we're not driving as much as normal. At least I'm not, and I think a lot of people probably aren't. But if you think about, you know, the last time you drove, you know, did you find yourself look down and find yourself maybe going a mile or two over the speed limit? Did you find yourself rolling through a stop sign maybe, or right on red without a full stop? Did you, you know, did you maybe glance at your phone when you were driving down the road because you got a notification? Those are the types of things that, you know, while you understand that those are not good practices, that most people fall into those every now and again. And that's why good planning is really important. I talked about being excited to talk to this group in particular. And the reason for that, honestly, is because when you talk about safety, at the heart of it, we're doing this for people, and safety is a community issue. Okay. So like I said, for me, I work in the State Highway Engineer's Office and support the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety, which does the statewide highway safety plan and the programs and things. But when we talk about safety, it's not just a statewide challenge. It's a challenge made up of, you know, 120 counties. It's made up of, you know, 484, I think, incorporated municipalities. It's made up of ADS and MPOs, and it's made up of all of these different communities. So when we talk about safety, where we're really going to make a difference is at the local level. And so one of the things that I really want to work from the Highway Safety Office standpoint on is providing resources, providing assistance, and ultimately working with everybody in this room to make our goals a reality, which, you know, we have some interim goals within our strategic highway safety plan, but we're going to talk ultimately about that big goal, which is we want to get to zero. And when we don't reach zero, we want to be as close to zero as possible. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and just encourage people that when we talk about safety, this isn't, we're not talking about metal and steel and plastic. We're talking about people's lives. And unfortunately, way too many people that are listening to this have either known someone personally who's been in a crash, a severe crash, and the effect that can have on individuals and their families, their communities, their workplaces, etc. So let's talk about the Strategic Highway Safety Plan a little bit. Strategic Highway Safety Plan is the umbrella document for how we intend to meet the Commonwealth's highway safety goals. Okay, and so we laid out a bold goal for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan this go around, and that is to have fewer than 500 highway deaths by 2024. Okay, so if you remember a little earlier, we talked about how we had 770 deaths last year. We had 732 the year before that, and 500 is a really aggressive goal. But I think that if we work together, if we do some of the things and we're able to carry through some of the things that are identified in this document, and we all work both professionally and personally to contribute to that goal, I do think it's achievable, and I think that we can make it. There's a big focus on prevention in this document, and I want to be very clear, and I'll talk about this on the next slide, what the difference between prevention and reduction is. But as far as our communities and things are concerned, we've talked a lot about prevention over the last 10 months when maybe that isn't something that's in the highlight reel, if you will. But this focus on prevention came from us working with our public health partners. And obviously this document was created and worked on well before the pandemic. But when we talk about highway safety, we're working to prevent future serious outcomes. Okay, and then there's 6 emphasis areas within this document that I'm going to talk about as well. All right, so like I said, let's talk a little bit about prevention. And when we talk about highway safety, you might hear one of 2 different concepts being discussed. Okay, how do we reduce the number of serious injuries and deaths we have on the system, or how do we prevent those from happening? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the nuance in the language here. Okay, and when I talked earlier about 770 lives being lost last year on the system as a result of crashes, the unfortunate part about that number is that while it's not final, that's preliminary data, and we may find out that some of those either didn't weren't caused by the transportation crash or whatever. Those lives that have been lost, I can't reduce those. When I go back and look in history, none of my actions are going to prevent those crashes from happening. And realistically, when we talk about prevention, we're talking about what happens in the future. So as we talk about what our efforts are in highway safety, whether that be at KYTC or whether it be within our local communities or whether it be within ADS or MPOs or local governments, when we talk about those initiatives, we're really looking at preventing those future crashes, those future serious outcomes, those things that we recognize could be happening on our system in the future. And we're going to work both on the infrastructure and non-infrastructure side to prevent those serious injuries and deaths. And so I just want to talk about this very briefly. When I talk about zero-based safety, a lot of people dismiss that summarily and say zero serious injuries and deaths is not possible. There's no reason for you to talk about that because we're never going to get there. Well, I can tell you that as we talk about safety being a community issue and we work on zero-based safety, not only at a statewide level, but at a community-based level, we do regularly have communities and counties within Kentucky that do have 0 deaths within a calendar year due to transportation crashes. And that's a good thing. And those are successes that we're looking to replicate in other places. So on the right here, there's a calendar that is from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And what the calendar represents are days when in 2018, when this was created in 2019, where no lives were lost as a result of a crash on the system, okay? And there were approximately 60 of those days in 2018, approximately one day in 6. And our goal is to have as few of these life-altering events as possible. And so when we really start thinking about zero a little bit differently, when you stop thinking about it only being zero for a year at a time or a decade at a time or a state at a time, and start thinking about it more in terms of the way that everybody considers it when they drive, right? It's really zero is a goal every trip, every time, one trip at a time. And so when you really boil it down to its simplest form, we're really looking at the opportunity where we all have trips that are free of injuries and deaths, and ultimately free of these serious crashes each and every time that we travel. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I know that that's something that that folks ask about a lot. Okay, so let's talk about emphasis areas now. So our previous Strategic Highway Safety Plan had quite a few emphasis areas. And one of the things that we really wanted to do as a part of this initiative in creating this new Strategic Highway Safety Plan was to create more focus. And when you think about the ability to get things done, it's very difficult to get a lot done in a short period if you're trying to focus on too many things. And so, you know, think about, I've heard it said to me, you know, if everything's important, then nothing's important. If everything's urgent, then nothing is urgent. And so these focus areas, or these emphasis areas, are a way for us to hone in on these most challenging items with highway safety in Kentucky and work through them. Okay. And so, like I said, there's 6 of them. And they involve, if you will, these 6 emphasis areas over the time period that we analyzed for data. They covered 95% of our fatal crashes and roughly 80% of our serious injury crashes. And so when we look at those emphasis areas, they are aggressive driving, distracted driving, impaired driving, occupant protection, roadway departure, and vulnerable road users. Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about resources that we have to help connect both safety professionals, transportation professionals, communities, and ultimately individuals with resources to help in these areas. So the first one I'm going to talk about is just the document itself. Okay, and there's a link here, and I'm sure that Jacob's going to send out these presentations after to the group, and I'll make sure that there's a PDF of it available to him. But the first resource is this Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and the document is shorter than previous documents. It's intended to be able to be consumed by a professional. And what we really want to do, and the goal that I laid out for our team in creating this, is that I wanted to help connect people with opportunities to make investments in safety. So if you have a minute to spend on safety or $1 to invest in it, I want to make sure that through this document, I help you understand how to make that an investment rather than just an expenditure of that minute or $1. Okay. And so there's a link to it here. And so you'll be able to look at that in its entirety. Each one of these emphasis areas, and I'm just going to scroll through them here. These are not meant to be read on screen, but each one of these emphasis areas within the document has a 2-page, that could be used as a front and back primer of what goes on in these highway safety areas. Okay, so remember, we're talking again about aggressive driving, distracted driving, impaired driving, occupant protection, roadway departure, and vulnerable road users. Okay. And so actually, I do want to call something here. You know, we made some bold statements in the strategic highway safety plan. I talked about the first one being that we had a strong goal of wanting to be fewer than 500 deaths in 5 years. Another one of these statements is impaired driving is 100% preventable. And this is something that if you talk to folks in the impaired driving community, that they holistically believe, as do I, that we do not have to be as a society making choices to get behind the wheel impaired. And so I just want to tell you that these documents, in addition to being informational, they're also helping people connect with the way that the world could be. Occupant protection, I'll mention just quickly. You know, I gave a buckle up, phone down message toward the beginning of the presentation here related to participating while driving. And the thing that I want to remind everybody about occupant protection is that, you know, a lot of people ask, well, do you want people to wear their seatbelt because it's the law? I mean, the truth of the matter is I'd really prefer that folks just wore their seatbelt because, you know, they understood that it was a good idea. But the bottom line is that we continue to lose a lot of people in Kentucky, and it impacts people in our rural communities more than it does our urban ones, unfortunately. You know, we lose people in crashes that, had folks been properly restrained, that they may not have lost their lives and they may not have been seriously injured. And so I really do think occupant protection is a huge opportunity, and that's why we're going to talk a little bit about buckle up, phone down here in a second. Roadway departure, vulnerable road users, just from a definition standpoint, a vulnerable road user is basically anybody that's using the system that's not in a car or a truck, you know, that they don't have the typical occupant protection sort of items that they can lean on. So think about bicyclists and pedestrians, motorcycle riders, highway workers, you know, pedestrians like school kids going to and from school as walkers. You know, vulnerable road users, there's a lot of opportunity in this area specifically. Okay, so I want to talk about a second resource here. We've recently launched a strategic highway safety plan dashboard, which basically takes all of these emphasis areas and boils them down so that we can look at them on a local level. I talked about safety being local, and it's really important that we consider this on a local level. So there's a link down here for that. But you know, you can look at that, say, from the standpoint of an ad or an MPO or a county. You know, and there's several other KYTC district, Kentucky State Police posts, and there's several other different ways to look at it. But basically, you can look at both statewide data and aggregated data, and data that is relative to each one of these emphasis areas that I mentioned specifically. So I've shown over here the Bowling Green MPO vulnerable road user page just as an example. But this kind of allows you to look at serious injuries and deaths in these particular areas due to transportation crashes. So a third set of resources that I want to call your attention to is our Buckle Up, Phone Down landing page. Can be found at the link that's here on the screen. And it just discusses relevant statistics about buckling up and putting your phone down. And, you know, we've got quite a few things on this website. There's statistical items, there's an infographic there, and there's some videos there. And I'm going to take just a second to play one, I think. Jacob, if I can see you on my screen here, if you can hear this when I play it, please just give me a thumbs up, okay? Oh.
A boy of mine's just like me. I love football, he loves football. My favorite color is green, his favorite color is green. I put ketchup on my eggs, he puts ketchup on his eggs. Everything I do, he does. I guess that's why they say like father, like son. Well, unfortunately, I didn't wear my seatbelt. Neither did he. Nothing's going to be the same ever again. So, please, to all the parents out there, make sure you show your kids what a good driver does. He buckles up, he puts the phone down. Make sure they understand that it only takes a second to change your life forever. Be safe, Kentucky. Buckle up. Put your phone down.
And I'll just say, we talked about being intentional a little bit ago. I don't want for that experience there to be the one that you have related to the example that you set. And so I will tell you, your example as a transportation professional, as a local government professional, just as a community member, a family member, has power. And when you talk about what we can do to contribute to highway safety, it's really, really important that we think about that example that we set. One of the opportunities that we have to become engaged is that we are seeding emphasis area task forces for all of those emphasis areas. And so if you have somebody that's you or on your staff that would be interested in participating in that, we would love to have them. You can send me an email. My contact information is at the end of this. But we really want to have participation from the planning partners, because so much of good highway safety behavior is related to planning. And so we're really excited to be able to work with this community on that. And I just want to close again by briefly saying that, when we talk about how we're going to get there, how we're going to get to fewer than 500 and eventually as close as possible to zero for a long period of time, I want you to know that you're the most important person in the room when it comes to that. Okay. And so realistically, how can we do this? I can help. And this is me, Jason, but this is you, every one of you. Okay. I can help by getting informed about safety, by getting involved in improving safety. And that's both professionally and personally within your communities, and intentional about the example I set relative to safety. And I can't stress enough how important you are in the ability for us, not only to reach our goal of fewer than 500, but to keep as many lives from being lost as possible. You are a critical part, and we just thank you so much for all of your work in this area. So that's it. I think I'm right on time, maybe a minute late. I apologize for that, Jacob, but I'm more than happy to take via email any questions or anything, and appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jason. Let's see, does anybody have any questions for Jason? I don't see anything in the chat box. But yeah, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy man. Jason said I didn't take him up on it, so he didn't know I was going to say something at the end. Jason was a mentor of mine in a leadership class at the cabinet. And I encourage that strongly across the state. If you guys work somewhere, if you don't have a mentorship program or a leadership program, that's very helpful in engaging your employee, engaging your audience. But anyway, as we were driving around a little bit for these different mentor meetings, I can assure you that every time we were in there, Jason was very intentional about being buckled up. Our phones were down, and we were always driving. We were either at or below the speed limit. I do remember that. And at the end, it was always, it doesn't matter what we were talking about that day, he would always end it with saying, "Stay safe." And I always appreciated that. So thanks, Jason, for your time, your mentorship. Great. He's a great asset, great leadership at the cabinet. So let's see. Yeah, Jason's presentation. Get send me a PDF, and I'll share that. Jason, we'll probably put it on a blind web page or something to send out a link. Let's see. Next up for us is we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit, but still kind of on a safety note. The impact that just one accident can have on a major road, not to mention fatalities on the minor roads. But one project in particular that got a lot of publicity this year for the significance of the route, for one. But the Brent Spence Bridge was shut down for a while, and we've got FHWA to kind of give us a perspective on it, and then our own KYTC, Stacy Hans, give her perspective on the KYTC side. So to start things, I'll intro Michael Loisel and Aaron Buckner first from FHWA, and then they'll hand it back to me. I'll give it to Stacy. So Mr. Michael Loisel is the major projects engineer for the Federal Highway Administration in Kentucky, an agency within the US DOT. He's been with FHWA for almost 22 years and has led transformative transportation projects in Kentucky for the past 15. He's received numerous national awards, US DOT Secretary's Award, FHWA Administrator's Award, 3 individual FHWA Discipline Awards in design, program, and project delivery and operations. Michael lives in Lexington, Kentucky with his family and loves Latin cuisine. So Michael Loisel, and then I'll go ahead and intro Aaron too. They're going to kind of tag team the presentation. So Aaron is a transportation specialist with FHWA, the Kentucky division, with program management responsibilities for construction, contract admin, and ER programs. And he's worked with the Kentucky division for 2 years after 6 years with KYTC. An interesting experience tidbit, this is actually the second crash he's dealt with, resulting fire damage on a bridge on I-75 that he's been involved with. So please welcome Michael Loisel and Aaron Buckner. And let me know, guys, if I need to, I probably need to share your slides.
Yes, please. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Whenever you're ready, Jacob, you're going to be the man of the hour with the slides, if that's okay with you.
Okay, yeah, let me load it here. And I'll share my screen here shortly.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Jacob and the staff over at Division Planning, as well as Bernadette Dupont, to allow us the opportunity to share the Federal Highway's perspective during our involvement efforts on the Brent Spence Bridge emergency repairs and the event and the actions that we took jointly together with the KYTC, in which we provided the support and technical assistance to our partners.
There you go. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Can we go to the next slide, please? Before we go into a little bit of the detail of today's presentation, I got about 11 slides, including the title slide that Aaron Buckner and myself developed for you all. I wanted to share a message, kind of a theme message that resonated to many of us who participated in joint effort associated to this particular event and resolutions that we took into. And it is a message known by the late Nelson Mandela. And it's pretty powerful because it resonated not only at the time of the event, not during the event, but throughout the entire event and furthermore the days that followed. And he says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." This presentation will show you the Federal Highways and share with you the Federal Highways involvement to help achieve the impossible, along with our KYTC partners within a 5-day period. Next slide, please. I'd like to offer and share with you a sense of recognition of some of the elements of success that took place, not only for this particular project, but some of these are pretty concurrent with your own projects as well. You know, we've been very fortunate to have a strong federal-state partnership with KYTC that we have developed, institutionalized, and nurtured to ensure that the federal laws and regulations are complied when using federal funds. We also need to recognize another element of success, program oversight. And this is not, again, an FHWA effort. This is a joint effort with our KYTC partners, in which we have to recognize as well the ability and our shared duty to support each other, ensuring that the emergency relief program requirements and guidance are fully met. Another element of success I'd like to share with you from today's message is logistical. we were very fortunate and able to provide the technical expertise within a matter of hours and days to KYTC from the ER program perspective to help shepherd the project development, procurement, and delivery phases of the project. We also shared in the leadership and communication, not only within ourselves, but also outside of our institutions. And that is also something that we ought to recognize that was an element of success throughout this entire, not only the 5-day period we're gonna go and share with you, but throughout and still today. We're still coordinating activities with our KYTC partners on this particular emergency event. Besides those elements of success, you see on the right-hand side of your screen the word challenges. And I always take challenges as elements of success. And these challenges happen to be project level challenges that we had to entertain ourselves and ensure that we were able to overcome jointly with our KYTC partners. And I'm very happy to say we were really challenged with the time to develop a project. You know, typically it takes years from the planning perspective all the way to deliver a project versus the hours and even days that we took to get from the event to the actual execution of a construction contract for this particular emergency event. That is a pretty significant milestone and achievement that we jointly share. And we are very, very happy to sharing that achievement together with our KYTC partners. Another challenge that we took on was following established construction procurement procedures and veer off those to support our division of purchases, the KYTC division of purchases procurement method. That was another challenge that we took and we jointly overcame. We also had a lot of national, regional, and local visibility, as Jacob mentioned in his introduction. And of course, the multiple levels of coordination and information management and sharing. Next slide, please. So let's get into the meats and bones of what happened and why is it truly critical and important to Federal Highways. We all know what the asset is and the asset that the transportation asset that took the event on, the Brent Spence Bridge, the major river crossing over the Ohio River in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, carried dual interstate routes, I-75 and I-71, about approximately 160,000 vehicles per day. Pretty significant transportation asset, not only for the region, but to the nation. And that is, in essence, kind of a critical info tidbit that resonates to Federal Highways and all the way to the Secretary of Transportation that we kept as well informed throughout this event. The event occurred on November 11, 2020. It was a Wednesday and it was a Veterans Federal holiday, Veterans Day. And that day, federal holiday, we were all off, if you all recall. Well, some of us took on phone calls at 6 o'clock in the morning and even earlier than that and began shepherding, coordinating and communication and staff and resources. And then determining what will be the next steps associated to attempt to address this event and provide the necessary support and coordination to our state partners at KYTC. What took place at the Brent Spence on that day was a commercial vehicle, motor vehicle collision that happened to instigate a second collision with a truck carrying potassium hydroxide. And that actually caused a big fire on the bridge, burning up to about 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So that event truly impacted the bridge and the ability to support its function. And it eventually led to a bridge closure. to allow not only for safely get the fire out and assess the damages associated to the fire, but it also took traffic out and temporarily being detour on other routes. And at that time, we both, Federal Highways and KYTC, came to the conclusion that we needed to have a mission. And the mission was to restore essential traffic service in a safe and efficient manner. With that, I'm going to leave Aaron Buckner to follow up on the next set of slides.
Next slide, please, Jacob. Yeah, I'd like to start out by saying I appreciate the opportunity to present on FHWA's involvement, and I would like to emphasize how fluid everything seemed the first few days after the event, as the extent of the damage was being assessed. There was a lot of information gathering going on, and you know, the event being unprecedented was definitely a fluid situation. I would first like to just give a little bit of information about the FHWA ER program and the requirements to be an eligible event and to be eligible for ER funds. First, an emergency declaration from the president or the governor must be made, and a letter of intent sent from the state requesting ER funds. Second, the FHWA division office replies with a letter of acknowledgement. On day one, Wednesday, KYTC forwarded the emergency declaration from the governor and the letter of intent and requested assistance in completion of the damage inspection. So FHWA started assembling a team, subject matter experts, to assist in that inspection of the bridge. And I will say, of course, during this entire process, the division office was reporting to headquarters daily status. So on Thursday, the subject matter expert team did assist on site with the damage inspections. The division office sent that letter of acknowledgement to KYTC, and just as a note of how fluid the situation was, KYTC sent a request for 12 million in quick release funds on Thursday. And quick release is, by definition, it's a down payment of the overall total, and it's meant to provide funds for emergency operations until the standard application can be submitted and approved. So at that point in time, KYTC was anticipating the repairs to be significantly more than $12 million. Next slide, please. On day three, FHWA worked with KYTC on the method that KYTC was going to procure a repair contract. Since emergency repairs in the ER program allow negotiated or solicited contracts, so FHWA normal federal aid procurement requirements are a 21-day advertisement prior to a low bid procurement. KYTC initially decided to negotiate a repair contract with a sole contractor and also negotiate a procurement contract for the beams necessary for the repair. On Friday, the detailed damage inspection report, or DDIR, was signed by FHWA for the maintenance of traffic inspection and environmental and engineering cost. Due to the location of the event, state line with Ohio, and the ER program's $700,000 minimum in federal share cost to be considered an eligible event, the Ohio DOT was unsure of how to seek reimbursement for their maintenance of traffic cost, and they had contacted KYTC about submitting those costs to KYTC. So Friday evening, we pulled together a teams meeting from our headquarters ER team, the Ohio division, and ODOT to determine a process for the ODOT reimbursement through the Ohio division. Next slide, please. Saturday, the $12 million in quick release allocation had been received. And by Saturday afternoon, KYTC shifted from a negotiated contract with a sole contractor to a solicited request for quotes from selected contractors. And they also asked for a waiver of the necessary 21-day advertisement requirement. Next slide, please. And things seem to speed up from here. So Sunday, KYTC procured the steel. And we, FHWA reviewed and approved that sole source procurement, and also reviewed and approved the 21-day advertisement waiver. The previous day, the RFQ had been issued and addendum 1 was already out. And so FHWA reviewed and approved that RFQ also. While also the right-of-way cert had been processed through our office. Next slide, please. On Monday, the quotes were received after an addendum 2 had been issued, reviewed and approved. Since KYTC had a better understanding of the actual construction cost, repair cost, a second DDR for the construction phase was submitted and approved. And after bid opening, FHWA reviewed the bid tabs and concurred in award on the low bid contract. Next slide. And I'll turn that back over to Michael now.
Thank you, Aaron. I hope that you all can hear me. We're about 2 more slides to go. And I just wanted to reiterate that FHWA was still and continues to be heavily involved after the initial 5-day period that Aaron shared with each one of you in his slides between the emergency event and the construction contract award. This particular slide shows some of our involvement efforts leading to repairs, repairs being completed under the original cost estimate budgeted for the project and ahead of the project schedule. FHWA also released recently unused ER quick release funds as well. Next slide, please. The Federal Highway's involvement in these emergency repairs for the Brent Spence Bridge was truly a team effort for which Aaron Buckner and I cannot take the full credit. These are some of our FHWA staff here in Kentucky and abroad, which lend ourselves to this effort, leaving families, working on extra hours for the benefit of the public. I appreciate your time. We will take any questions or comments after Stacy Hand's presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. So that's FHWA perspective on that emergency project. And now for KYTC's perspective, thanks for a neat partnership to give both perspectives. Ms. Stacy Hans has worked for KYTC's District 6 office since 2006. She began a career at KYTC as an environmental coordinator and ultimately served a dual role where she was appointed to the Brent Spence Bridge as a project manager in 2011. Most recently, Stacy transitioned to an executive staff advisor in February of 19. And she came to KYTC from the Division of Water, where she worked in the compliance section of the drinking water branch, which is kind of interesting, overseeing public outreach via the distribution of the Consumer Confidence Reports public notifications. She resides in Independence with her husband, Jeff, and their 2 teenage daughters, Kaylin, 16, and Kara, 13. The family enjoys outdoor activities and spends many summer weekends camping and boating. So please welcome Mrs. Hans.
Hey, Jacob. Thank you for that introduction. I think you're going to have to stop sharing your screen in order for me to share mine.
Yeah, good point. I just stopped. I just now stopped, so you should be able to upload.
Can you see it now?
Let's see, not yet. It's probably still loading. You said, I remember you saying you had a big file there.
Let me,
And I think you sent them to me in an email, so I can try to upload them too if yours doesn't take off here. Okay, there you go. I can see you now.
all right. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Michael and Aaron. So as mentioned, I'm going to talk today about the intent of today's presentation is to discuss KYTC's perspective on the Brent Spence repair project as it advanced from crash to contract to construction and ultimately to completion. Michael's already explained the incident as it occurred on November 11th, as he mentioned, Veterans Day. Just to reiterate, there were 2 commercial vehicles, and one was carrying diesel fuel and one was carrying a small amount of potassium hydroxide. And neither one were deemed hazardous in their amount, but the combustible diesel fueled the intense heat of the blaze. Even before the incident was completely cleaned up, our KYTC bridge inspection leadership team called on 20 to 30 inspectors from KYTC and 4 firms, including Michael Baker, Stantec, Burgess and Nyepel, and Palmer. They also utilized drones for an initial evaluation before having direct access to all of the locations of the bridge. The inspection included a thorough examination of the structure, members with within the heat impacted zone. It was ultimately determined that there was no structural damage to the critical members of the bridge and it could be repaired. So at that point, the project moved to a repair project. Slide should be coming up. KYTC was tasked with moving with deliberate speed to get the bridge open in a safe manner. Michael mentioned the utilization of a purchasing contract, but for us, it was a bit of an innovative approach in conjunction with our FHWA partners. We were able to get the project in the contractor's hands through a purchasing contract in just 5 days from the incident. We crafted a biddable document, solicited proposals, held a pre-bid meeting on Saturday, answered questions on Sunday, and awarded a contract to Kokosing Construction Company on Monday, November 16th. The project had a target completion date of December 23rd, 2020. But this project is not only about construction. Our timeline was based mostly on the construction aspect, but we had 2 other equally important pillars in the success of our project: maintenance of traffic and public awareness. Each of the pillars had a point person responsible for activities within their area. It was my role as project coordinator to make sure that the 3 areas worked together and shared information to achieve the common goal. From a construction perspective, once the project was established as a repair project, it was not an enormously difficult project. However, it was in an extremely difficult location and under an extremely tight schedule. The project was administered by District 6 staff led by Corey Wilson, and the team established 3 hand-picked, I always say when I get the opportunity, I want to hand-pick, but we have hand-picked inspection crews led by an engineer to cover the 24-hour operations if needed. The project team also had a 4th inspection crew on standby in case one of the crews was impacted by COVID. The construction team leads and the contractor lead held daily update meetings to ensure that the proper progress of the project. The next several slides provide a visual overview of the repair work of the project. And while the incident occurred on the lower deck, the most significant impacts were observed on the upper deck of the bridge. The concrete driving surface acted as an insulator to the beams and joints located on the lower deck. However, the stringer beams on the upper deck were directly in the line of fire and sustained the most significant damage. This slide shows the area of the bridge determined to be impacted by the fire. And once the impacted area was identified and a repair plan put in place, the first step was removal of the impacted area. As shown in this slide, we had to remove the upper deck concrete driving surface and the barrier wall on the forebase, which encompassed about 120 feet. The next slide shows the removal of the warp stringer beams from the two bays from 17 to 18 prime and 18 prime to 19 prime. The next slide, I believe. Yeah, it shows the replacement of the damaged beams. In order to expedite the repair project, these beams were secured by KYTC personnel even before a contractor was in place. The beams were then delivered to Bottoms Engineering in Frankfurt for site-specific specifications and fabrication. As an aid for pouring the concrete on the driving surface, deck pans were put in place, followed by rebar. And then the last step before the concrete on this one was the installation of the barrier wall tie-ins. Next slide shows the lower deck repairs. As I mentioned in the beginning, the incident did not cause a significant impact to the lower deck. Instead of a complete deck replacement, the project simply milled the top layer of the lower deck and replaced the barrier walls within the impacted area. So this slide shows the amount of concrete, or the amount of new poured concrete for the project. It combines several steps and sequencing. Obviously, we did not pour all the concrete at once, but the operation was staggered, and it gives you an idea of the overall work done to the bridge. And then the last step, of course, was to complete the final inspection and get it submitted back into our KYTC bridge inventory and restriping the new concrete. And that actually took place on opening day. The second pillar in our project was the maintenance of traffic. Unlike a typical KYTC construction project, the maintenance of traffic responsibility for this project was addressed outside of construction, both contractually and physically. There was no live traffic in the construction area of the project. This allowed the construction contractor to focus only on the construction aspect of the project. It was a clean break at the Ohio River, and therefore KYTC handled maintenance of traffic operations and approach in Kentucky, and ODOT oversaw the maintenance of traffic in Ohio, obviously with much coordination between the states. In Kentucky, we utilized a hybrid approach for the MOT. We brought in John R. Jurgensen, a contractor who's done a lot of work on the interstates in Northern Kentucky. We brought them in under a contract that was then supplemented by our own KYTC forces. We dedicated an MOT team, or maintenance of traffic team, outside of our construction team. And that team was led by TJ Gilpin out of Central Office Maintenance. And our Kenton County and our Campbell County maintenance crews worked seamlessly on this project. From an outside source looking in, you couldn't tell which crew was which one. So they combined efforts and worked seamlessly. We were charged as part of this project to reroute or redirect 160,000 vehicles per day. Our messaging had to expand beyond Northern Kentucky. So we included messaging in the Lexington, Louisville, and Indianapolis markets, and ODOT extended their messaging north into Dayton and to Columbus. Once the maintenance of traffic was in place, both from the time of the incident and then our more permanent project maintenance of traffic, we immediately began seeing congestion on the other Ohio River crossings, some of which already have limited capacity or weight restrictions, including the National Historic Landmark, the Roebling Suspension Bridge. The maintenance of traffic for this project continued to be fluid. We responded to comments from both our law enforcement partners and the public and made adjustments as necessary. Instead of having the lead time that you would have on a normal construction project, we were making real-time decisions and adjustments in the field. In addition to the in-person wayfinding messaging, we worked closely with the communications team, which I'll talk about our communications staff in just a moment, to make sure that the MOT information was staying up to date and current on the project website. We also communicated with outside groups such as Amazon and mapping agencies. So as we were consistently and constantly fighting the wayfinding systems such as Google Maps and TomToms and et cetera. Because it was only a 6-week project and because we were adjusting continuously throughout the project, as soon as we started feeling comfortable with the MOT that we had in place, it was time to start thinking about how we were going to safely and efficiently remove it all. The next slide shows some of the efficiency projects that KYTC was able to undertake while the maintenance of traffic was in place for the Brisbane Bridge. We seized this opportunity to complete some secondary or efficiency projects while the maintenance of traffic was in place. If you're familiar with this ultra-urban area, MOT can be quite expensive and limiting for projects, sometimes costing hundreds of thousands of dollars and limiting contractors to only night work. During the Brent Spence Bridge repair project, we were able to complete a project to modify and expand the drainage structure on the inside shoulder of I-71-75 northbound to address a water ponding issue that we had been experiencing in the high-speed lane. We also completed an I-71-75 resurfacing project on the north end approach of the bridge, as well as other routine projects that were just very difficult to complete under live traffic, such as bridge deck pothole patching, barrier wall work, overhead sign cleaning. It's amazing how dirty those signs get, and we never really have the opportunity to clean them. So we were able to take this opportunity with our internal KYTC District 6 engineering support staff. And then we also had a guardrail replacement project off of the south end of the bridge. The final component of our 3 pillars is public awareness. Internally, we affectionately call this feeding the beast. In order to accomplish this task, we had a public awareness team dedicated to this project, led by Naitori Jibinu, the Executive Director for the Office of Public Affairs for KYTC, as well as support from Nancy Wood, our local District 6 PIO, and Razor Marketing Firm. They're located locally to the region. This team established a project website, BrentSpenceRepair.com. It's a standalone website, but also linked to our KYTC website as well as our District 6 webpage. This website was used to share construction project information as well as MOT and detour information. This team also held weekly virtual press conferences with the Secretary and KYTC personnel. These meetings were held on Wednesday. And if you paid attention to when our last press conference was scheduled, that was probably the first indicator that we were going to be opening early, since that was scheduled on a Tuesday. But this team also created a social media presence through daily social media updates. Sometimes that included just pictures and messaging, but other times it included videos of KYTC employees, including the Secretary, from the field providing an update on project activities and the project status. This created a transparency with the public and emphasized the people doing the work, not just the technical work of the technical details of the work being completed. Our goal was to provide consistent visual content of what was happening on the bridge. As I mentioned, we had a project website that is BrentSpenceRepair.com. The website is still active and will be where you can find project photos, time-lapse videos of both the upper deck and the lower deck, and a recap documentary that will be available later this week. Now, with all of that said and done, and those are the 3 pillars of the project, let's talk about opening day. After all, I believe that was the ultimate goal, right? From a project coordinator's perspective, or from a project coordination perspective, this by far was the most difficult coordination effort of the entire project. Synchronizing the efforts and timing of each of those 3 pillars to match up was a significant challenge. The final bridge inspection occurred Monday, and the approval letter was received Monday afternoon, which required tremendous coordination. That was, the concluding piece of information that we needed to make sure that we were ready to open on December 22nd, as opposed to Wednesday, December 23rd. From an MOT perspective, we established Monday morning as our go, no go decision point because of the lead time for the closure at I-275 and the removal of the MOT items within the I-270 loop. And then from a construction perspective, activities were still going on Tuesday morning that had to be completed and accepted. As I mentioned earlier, our striping activities was one of the final activities to take place, and that occurred Tuesday mid-morning and early afternoon, to the point where we were sitting there literally watching paint to dry in order to be able to open the project. And then also from the 3rd pillar, from a communications perspective, we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide current, accurate information without setting an unreasonable expectation. So instead of announcing an opening time, we gave ourselves a window that we would be opening. but we still needed to let the traveling public know that the bridge would be available for use. And at the end of the day, it was a success. We opened the structure by 3 o'clock. You can see there in the middle picture with a fanfare of blue lights and a KYTC escort. Traffic was opened starting at the I-275, moving north, and the ramps were opened as we moved north to the bridge. By the afternoon rush hour, so by about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, the traffic was traveling smoothly, and you couldn't even tell that there had been an incident on the bridge. So in our opinion, that was the sure sign of success. Just as a conclusion, to wrap up our thoughts on the project, we opened ahead of schedule. As I mentioned, our target date was December 23rd. We actually opened on December 22nd, Tuesday, one day ahead of the target date. We were under budget of the US DOT emergency relief contract. We anticipate using just about half of the $12 million quick release funds and being able to return the remainder. The construction contract was awarded for just over $3.1 million, and the project incurred additional expenses such as materials that we've actually purchased or secured, state forces, and et cetera, but we still expect it to be around the $6 million mark. And then from the public comment perspective, we received overwhelming positive feedback. And for anyone that has ever worked on a very public project, that never happens. Usually we're torn apart from social media. But once the project had wrapped up, we received, like I said, an overwhelming amount of positive public feedback through our social media, as well as even the news outlets. And before we open up the presentation for questions, I want to show this slide of major construction milestones that the project team was able to accomplish in just 6 weeks. As we look at the slide and celebrate the success, we have to reflect on what made this accomplishment possible. And I would, it obviously started with the leadership, from the support from the top, not just the secretary and his staff, such as State Highway Engineer James Ballinger, Assistant State Highway Engineers John Moore and Jason Sawala, but all the way up to the governor and his staff. We held nightly virtual coordination meetings with participation and involvement by KYTC executive leadership. The project was also successful because of the collaboration with our local, state, and national partners at every level and step of the process. If we weren't in direct contact with their leadership, their point person was echoing the support from their leadership levels. As Michael mentioned, we were constantly in conversations with FHWA, and if it was Michael that we were talking to, he was, given his leadership opinion, but also echoing the leadership from the division director throughout the process, through all of our coordination and our collaboration efforts throughout the process. Another reason the project was successful was we established and communicated clearly defined goals at the onset of the project. We knew the target date. We knew that we were going to be open by December 23rd, and everyone was working collaboratively towards that opening date. We also had statewide resources at the project team's disposal. One positive, if I can say that there has been a positive from COVID-19, one positive is that people are more accustomed to what we're doing today, virtual meetings. So it was not a big deal for us to set up an MS Teams meeting with a subject matter expert outside of Northern Kentucky. Another aspect to make the project successful was we had decision-making points in the field. I previously mentioned that our construction organizational structure involved team leads for each shift. What I didn't state was those team leads were branch manager caliber people in the construction site, and they were able to make instant decisions and provide immediate feedback to the contractor. We also maintained flexibility in all aspects of the project. For example, KYTC maintained control of the variable message boards and our hybrid approach to the MOT. I mentioned that we had a contractor on board as well as our KYTC staff. By keeping the message boards as something that we controlled, we allowed us to modify any messaging that we made in real-time adjustments in the field. And then finally, for this project to be successful, we had to have communication, communication, communication. As I tried to respect everyone's time and schedule and tried to cut back on the update meetings, I was reminded several times that there is no such thing as over communication on a project, especially a project of this size. Sorry, that slide jumped around on me. So like I said, just the last iteration was a couple of the things that advanced this project, allowed this project to be successful. And at this time, I guess I would like to turn it back over to Jacob to allow questions, if there are any.
Yeah, awesome presentation, guys. Thanks, Michael, Aaron, and Stacy. It's usually a challenge to do a presentation right before lunch, but I was riveted. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Yeah, thanks, guys.
And we got you in just under noon, right? That was the
you're right
goal.
on time. Got a couple of minutes left for some questions. Let me see if there's some chat here, chat box. Anybody have anything that you wanted to ask FHWA or KYTC? Details, I guess if you think of them after the fact, just email. You can email me, or I'll try to capture these presentations as well. Stacy sent me hers too, and I'll probably do a blind web page if it's approved by the division, and then send everybody like a link, where it can be confidential but still be accessible. So thanks again, guys. Very professional presentation. Good slides. I like the leadership call out, the value of leadership, the value of partnerships and communication for sure. Projects like this in the planning world, that's kind of what we strive to do, is be great communicators and get the project, the philosophies out there, and try to do the best we can with our network and keeping everybody informed. So let's see. With that said, I see a lot of congratulations and good jobs in the chat box. Let's see, wrapping up, I'll share my screen too for my information for contacting me. And if you have any questions, you feel free to email me. There's my contact info with the Transportation Cabinet. And to wrap it up succinctly here, sincere thanks to all the speakers today. For your time, your efforts in getting these presentation materials together. Very educational. I think it helps our team statewide to have these kind of trainings and meetings. And hopefully we'll get together one day and get to meet and shake hands, all that kind of stuff again soon. Thanks to the audience as well for your time and attention, Cyber World. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes if there's last minute questions or kind of information flow things. Otherwise, be safe, stay well, and have a great rest of the day. I'll see you next time. I'll leave the chat box open for a few more minutes. See you guys. Take care.
Hey, Jacob.
Hey.
Did you by chance get a list of those who attended this, who attended this presentation today?
I see them all in like a participant list. I'll have to ask Travis Wagers if he can give me a printout of it, maybe. But it's recorded, so I might have had a screenshot of it. But I think Travis can download the participants, you know, like when they entered the meeting, when they left the meeting, all that kind of stuff. So did you need a list?
If I do, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of neat to see people come and go, and you can kind of tell the ones that might have it on in the background. You know, it takes them a little while to log off, but
yeah, they're not. They may be there, or they may be in the kitchen making lunch. Yeah, I had training today, so I missed out on the beginning part, but I did get to listen to Stacy's presentation on the Prince project. It was riveting, but
I thought it went well.
Okay, I'm signing off.
All right, see you, Scott.